Yo, welcome. So I'm Black Leopardex on Twitch. I played Dead by Daylight since 2017, 18. I have around 7k hours in the game, and I'm definitely a survivor main, so I have a bias there. 4,000 of those hours have been live, and I love DBD. I love this game very much, obviously. However, I wanted to talk a little bit about why I play less, because recently Behavior has done a lot of things to the game, and they're planning to do more things to the game, and they are telling us that the reason why they are changing the game is because people are leaving because of tunneling and slugging and camping. I don't know about you, but for me, that's not why I play less. Sure, it's not always fun to get tunneled, and it can be really, really annoying, but I actually have some other things that makes me not want to play this game as much as I used to. So I play with 60 to 70 ping, which isn't like the best. I do have a fiber connection, I do have a good computer, but bad hits is one of the main things that annoy me about this game at the moment. And I don't think I've experienced more consistent bad hits than I do in the last few years. Earlier, I feel like the game used to have a more randomness and a little bit more lenient to one side or the other, but I do feel now like if I go on killer, I often say out loud that shouldn't have hit when I down a survivor. And yeah, I know this is biased because I mostly play survivors, so obviously I'm gonna have like I'm gonna see more of that side, both for good and bad, and we're gonna remember the bad more often than the good. But it does. I cannot count how many times I drop a pallet, I get hit regardless through the pallet. The killer swings and hits me from 2 meters away. The killer is looking in the opposite direction while he's swinging, and he hits me anyway. And that art at this point works so rarely that I just stopped running it altogether. It feels at least like 70% of the time I don't benefit from that art, regardless if I press the button soon enough or not. And I do track my keys, and I have done many tests and recordings where it's obvious, like it's raw footage where I click the button, the killer swings and hits me, and I go down regardless. It just doesn't work when you take ping into the account. And yeah, I don't have the best ping, but I also don't think I have the worst, and I don't think the game should feel this bad when it comes to ping issues on 60 to 70 ping. I think that is a reasonable ping to have. So that is my main reason to why I play the game less. Now the second one is also a big one, and it has nothing to do with really killers playing like assholes. And what I mean by assholes is like proxy camping and tunneling someone off hook is extremely boring, and it's mostly boring for the rest of the people that don't get any chase and just sit on gens, and basically if they try to do something they will be hit off on hook when they unhook, or even before sometimes. That's not my biggest problem. Like, those games are annoying, but I think if we start removing possible gameplay like that, it's too complicated. The whole game needs to change. We're gonna get back to that because I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So the other thing that has made me leave the game is actually boring killers, and I think a lot of people can relate to this. That there is too many killers at this point that are just not fun to face, and I mean, some of my best examples for being personally are Skull Merchant. It's just an extremely boring killer to go against. Alien, where it feels like whatever you do, you're gonna get hit. The same goes for the Krasne, the new killer. It feels like there is just very little you can do to counterplay. Even after the nerfs, she's still very strong and not very engaging to go against. The same goes for many other killers, and I'm a bit hesitant to mention too many because this comes a little bit down to personal preference as well. But I do not like Trickster. Trickster with the current Trickster is really annoying to go against. It feels like if you throw enough blades, doesn't matter if you hit a lot or not, you're gonna get the main event in the first chase, and regardless if you miss a bunch of blades, you're gonna be compensated for whatever reason to just get the main event on the last second, just to ensure that you get the down in whatever scenario. And that doesn't make Trickster like the best killer in the game, it just makes it really boring to face. And that's true for many killers. Like Hag is also the way you're supposed to play Hag, it's really boring to go against. And this ties back to something that I'm going to talk about later, where the true counterplay for Hag used to be that you have to shine your beamer at the trap, and that's gone. Like the current wipe system that we have is just really tedious, and you can't really use it in chase at all, like not even close. And yeah, I mean, we could go on and talk about, I could go into detail about every killer that I find boring to go against. And that's not to say that all killers are boring to go against, but it's too many. And this ties back into the maps of Dead by Daylight, because either the maps, there are a lot of maps that are okay for either side, I would say. And I don't mind maps being unbalanced to some degree, but some of the maps are just really killer-sided or really survivor-sided, and I don't think this is fun for either side. I find it that half the time when I load into a game, I have to encounter bad hits. In some games, in many games actually, I have to encounter killers that are unfun to go against. And even if it isn't a killer that's unfun to go against or bad hits, the chances are we're gonna go to a boring map. And I don't think this is the biggest issue, because as a survivor main, I don't mind most maps. I don't have a problem with indoor maps or anything like that. But I do have a problem with some maps that are hugely beneficial to survivors, like Badam, or maps that are hugely unbeneficial to survivors, like Forgotten Ruins. They just don't make for fun gameplay. Like, if it's leaning towards one side or the other, it doesn't feel fun. So while I don't think that every map has to be perfectly balanced, because it's impossible, and I don't think balance is always the answer to making a fun game. I think certain unbalanced stuff in games make the games fun, because chaos can be fun as well. But if it's something that is just too leaning to one side, it's not gonna benefit anyone. It's not gonna be fun for either side. In my opinion, anyway. So once I load into a game, I have to wonder, am I gonna have the killer hit me from 2 meters away? Am I gonna be hit through the pallet? Is it gonna be a killer that's boring to go against, which a lot of them are, sadly? And is it gonna be a map that is just hugely unbalanced for either side? Like, those are the questions on my mind. And it's not like I think about that every time, but it's like, it's those factors that make me want to queue up for a game less and less. And then we have like a whole, like that's my main reasons for why I play less Dead by Daylight. That is by far the main reason. It's not because of tunneling, it's not because of base camping, it's because of those things. And then we get into like a bunch of other things, and this is more personal to me, and I think less people might relate to this. I mean, some people will for sure, but this is more, I'm gonna go into a little bit deeper topics where I think this is important to me, but I will understand why people might not agree with it. So the first thing is actually a bit of nuances to how Dead by Daylight functions. So the first thing I'm going to mention is like invisible walls, and this is probably the most relatable thing. If you're like an older player that plays Billy or any killer that can leap forward in any sense, because they have been implementing more and more invisible walls to the game where you can't like use certain heights to like leap forward, and in some cases you can't even like, you can't get on top of certain things. Like in Mother's Dwelling, there is like a table in the main building where you can't even walk on top of that anymore, which used to be a very fun thing to do. And for Billy, you can't do Sky Billy anymore. For Demogorgon as well, you can't like leap off certain buildings to like shoot forward. And I'm really confused by those changes, because I don't really see why they make it unfun. Like, because in my opinion, when you start limiting stuff that is like a little bit gimmicky and a little bit like, yeah, it's just a bit of fun, and it's just a bit of like interesting. It's an interesting aspect to Dead by Daylight, or it used to be an interesting aspect to Dead by Daylight, knowing certain small things like that, like walking on a table, or I can't think of anything else like you would do it as a survivor in particular, but definitely stuff like killers could do, like leap off stuff, or even Sky Billy, for fuck's sake. Like, why remove things from the game that gives the game more context? Why remove things that give people joy when nobody, and I mean nobody, because I have seen never a single soul complain about Sky Billy or complain about a hag sending someone to the universe, or someone walking on top of a table. Like, sure, maybe someone that can't hit the survivor that's running around on a table, and if you have played it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I get it, you don't know. If someone is like looping you on a table and you can't hit them because they move perfectly on it, like, I mean, sorry, but learn to play. So that's the first thing I'm gonna mention when it comes to a little bit deeper stuff. The next thing would be like flashlights, and I know this is the reason they gave for changing flashlights back in the day, because if you haven't played it long, flashlights have now this internal cooldown when you click them, so you can't like rapidly click a flashlight, because there is like this small like it's like a built-in cooldown to like how often you can like click, and it like it pauses your action or your movement while you do it, because it's not instant. That didn't used to be this way, and when the beamer or flashlight was actually not having this internal cooldown, it could be used for certain movement tricks, and it could be used to like 360 in a certain way. It could be used to signify better in a match to like, hey, for example, if you're coming with a killer behind you that doesn't have a terror radius and you see two people on the gen, you could like quickly click your beamer a few times to like indicate, without slowing down, to like indicate, hey, I'm being followed by a killer you can't hear, you know? Like it had like utility. The flashlight had more utility. It also functioned on certain killer powers, like you could burn a nurse to stop her from blinking. You could remove traps from a hag by shining your beamer at them. And this you could do in chase, but it was still really hard to actually pull it off in chase, because even though the flashlight was instant in the way you click it, you still had to shine on it for like a second or so, which, yeah, that's gonna slow you down regardless. And that was fine. Like, it shouldn't be super easy to do that, but I also don't see the reason for it not existing, because how you have it now everybody hates hag. And back when that was a thing, at least you had some kind of counter, and it was a bit niche and it was a bit random if you had a beamer or not. It would function, and I think that was fine. And the same goes for the birds from the artist. You could actually remove the birds with a flashlight. Earlier, now you can't do that. You could shine your beamer on someone else that was covered by birds. Can't do that either. And you could actually also, another bigger thing that was probably the most problematic, I guess, was that you could burn a wraith. The thing about the wraith burning, though, it would require you to use quite a lot of your beamer to be able to do that to a good wraith, or most of the time, if the wraith is moving, you couldn't do that to a good wraith, because it would just zigzag and you would basically just waste your batteries or whatever. So I don't know. I think removing those things from the flashlight, and not to like the most important thing being the cooldown to the clicking. And I did this because they don't want people to macro the beamer, and I think it does have to do with seizures and stuff like that. And I get it, like, but there are ways to get around that without removing the ability to instantly click in and out of the beamer flash. For example, removing the noise if you click it rapidly would be fine. Like, if you click it 3 times in a row, the noise would just disappear. So even if you kept clicking it, it wouldn't like continuously make this clicking noise. That would be a solution. And when it comes to the flashlight beam itself, for like blinking purposes, you could do something similar there, or you could make the flashlight go less and less bright the more you would click it rapidly. Like, there are ways to like get around that without giving the flashlight a internal like small cooldown. I just think it makes the game less smooth to play as the survivor. As if you have played back then, you know what I'm talking about. If you use the flashlight like that, you know exactly what I mean. It just feels more clunky. It's just not as smooth to use it, you know. It's terrible. I think I could go on with other nuances things. Like, there are certain unique loops that I have also removed. The first one on top of my head is a really old one. It's the track machine on Ormond. That loop used to be incredibly fun, and they removed it. And I don't really see why they keep doing things like that. I think the more unique stuff you remove from a game, the less interesting it becomes. If every map had some kind of unique loop, and I don't mean just a random window in a wall that is slightly different than all the other windows in a wall, but actually the new map, the something lake, it's the other map from Ormond, like the new one with the new snow map, actually has one of those unique loops, and I hope they never remove it. Is that pipe, where you have that slope with a pallet on top and then a pipe going through it. That is actually a good loop, and I mean loops like that use elevation or something like that to make it interesting loop. That loop is actually quite fun if you know how to run it. It's not super safe, it's not unplayable killer, but it is fun if you learn how to move on it as a survivor. Like if you learn, sorry, I'm sick. If you learn how to path correctly around it, it can be a really fun tile to run. And I think if every map had something like that, it would be more fun to enter that map. And the more of that stuff you remove from the game, well, now there's one less thing to do. The same goes, I actually thought about something else now when it comes to that table in Mother's Dwelling. It's the railing in Hawkins. Again, if you know, sorry. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. It's the railing, it's the big room with the two staircases that are going like one on either side of the room on the long sides, where you can go up on one, or you can go up and down on both sides, and it's like this huge walkway in the middle with like two circular ends, and you like can jump down on either side to the staircase. Earlier you could actually jump down to the middle of the staircase if you aimed at it correctly, you know, if you knew how to do it. And that's another thing, that it's like you learn how to do that, and it's a fun thing to learn as a survivor. And I don't see the problem with having niche loops that you need to learn to be able to use. That gives people like a form of like goal to do, like they can see a video of someone using that rail, you know, and they notice someone else using it, like when they're playing killer, and they're like, hey, I want to be able to do that. And it's not like it's super hard or anything, but once you know and learn how to do that, you feel some sort of accomplishment, and you feel like, hey, I know something about the game that is a bit unique. And I think the more of that stuff that you remove from the game, the less things you have to learn, the less context and nuances the game have, the less things you have to learn, and the less you just have less things to master, and it will give you less satisfaction to actually to want to continue to play the game, to want to continue to be better at the game. And this also ties back to like flashlight timings. Like they have made it slightly harder than it was when it was super easy to get a flashlight save. In my opinion, still too easy. Flashlight saves should have a very tiny timing, and even if ping affects that, I think that's fine. I think that when saves like that become harder, they become more fun to actually do. Like if you get a flashlight save these days, it's, as a veteran player at least, you feel absolutely no sense of accomplishment whatsoever, because it is only about positioning at this point. If you fuck up badly enough to do it so early, and I'm not saying I've done it too early, it's like it's a rarity, and it's like, yeah, okay, I just did it way too early at that point. It's not hard, and it just takes away from the game. In my opinion, at least, it's just making the game just watered down and boring. I was going to talk about Bloodlust, but I don't want to touch on that, because I think that's for another video, because it's more balance related, and I don't think that's the video. I don't think this is the video for that. But I do want to talk briefly about the patch that we didn't get and why I think it's a bad idea. So in the planned patch that they butchered in the last second, they plan to reward survivors that were getting tunneled with bigger buffs, and punish killers that were tunneling. I don't think this is a good idea, because you should never reward players that are winning, and if the win condition is allowing tunneling to be a play, I think it's a bad idea to punish someone for actively playing the game, because it's not clear enough in any normal gameplay. There shouldn't be a moment where, as the killer in a game where you're supposed to kill your opponent, there shouldn't be a moment where you're punished for killing someone. It doesn't matter if they're having no fun at all because you're killing them and not going on anyone else, because that is fundamentally a part about Dead by Daylight. I can complain about getting tunneled and getting camped all day long on Twitch. It doesn't mean that I think it should change, or that I think it should change in that way, at least. It needs to be another way of doing that. I can't imagine a way where the killer is getting punished for actually playing the game or playing the game well. I can talk on stream about that. I don't think tunneling and especially proxy camping is skillful, because I don't think it is, but that doesn't mean I want it changed in this way. It doesn't mean that I want killers to suffer for tunneling. There needs to be other ways to make... And if there aren't any other ways than to punish the killer, then it just needs to stay, I guess, because I don't think that's healthy for the game at all. And the last thing I'm gonna say is that we have already in 2v8 a function in the game that I really dislike. Basically, in 2v8, if the killers are losing, they are getting certain buffs to compensate for the fact that they are losing. And if the survivors are losing, they're getting certain buffs like repair speed to compensate for the fact that they are losing. And this is terrible. First of all, again, we're rewarding the losing side for playing bad. I'm sorry, there is no game there is no online game, or there is no game period that should do this. And not only that, but we also get too much nuances to how the game functions. So to explain it a little bit better, if you have enough hours in Dead by Daylight, you slowly develop like timings in your head for like how much time is left on a generator just from hearing the sound of it. Or yeah, just different timings in the game will just be built into your brain. But if they start to fluctuate depending on how the game is going from one side or the other, you lose these timings. You don't have them built into your head anymore. And if they are constantly fluctuating, you can't even really embed them into your brain. And I don't think this is a good place to be, just from a learning the game perspective, because you can't trust your instincts or your experience in the game to this degree anymore. Sure, there are ways to like alter gen speed and killer speed and all this stuff. I have strong opinions about that too, but again, this is not the video for that. But yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to start messing with timings like that and fluctuate it, especially when it comes to like giving people benefits for losing the game. I could go more in depth of changes that are more directly affecting the gameplay and would touch on like balance and stuff like that, but this is definitely not the video for it. I just wanted to express my main reasons for not playing this game as much, because I used to play this game every single day for hours on end, and now I can have weeks where I don't really want to touch it, and I just wanted to go over my main reasons for doing other things and not playing this game. And sure, I'm sure that me having 7k hours in the game are also a reason for why I don't want to play this game anymore. Obviously, the more you play a game, the more tired you get of it, or the more exhausted you get from playing it. Everything becomes more annoying. Everything that is already annoying becomes more annoying when you have done it 1,000 times already. But I don't think it's only that. I think it could be better. I could like this game more if certain things were just different. And I still love this game. I will still play this game from time to time, but it is slowly not becoming my main game anymore, and I think that's kind of sad. If you can relate to this, cool. If you have any other reasons for why you are playing the game less, or maybe you're fine with how the game are now, leave a comment. I'll read all of them and I'll respond if I have something to say. So yeah. Anyway, take care.